The story opens at the mansion of a big shot in the Xuan nation, the Grand Tutor. Meanwhile, someone is whipping up a god-tier drink in a golden goblet. And check out the old geezer, getting served by two ladies. The old man is living the dream, bro. It's the big boss's birthday, and the whole crew is gathered to clap for him. This clown, all hyped up, thinks his story is legendary, with an ego bigger than the empire itself. But then we see he's actually Li Fan, a total nobody who got a Zeki'd to this world when he was just a broke student. Back in the present, he holds his drink feeling like the king of the world with this perfect life. The party is popping off in the main hall, with dancers and bling everywhere, because the old man knows how to throw a bash. Out of nowhere, a fireball rips through the sky and the crowd thinks it's a lucky sign for the mansion. But the tutor hops onto the roof and realizes this isn't a gift, looking like he just smelled big trouble. And up high, things are getting ugly between a golden being and a purple one, who's yelling at this Dao Zhuanzi guy not to push his luck. The crowd down below finally realizes that these are cultivators. The Grand Tutor goes into shock, bummed out to see this happening right in his own backyard. The purple guy, Xuanzi, steps up and demands that Ku Hong hand over the cultivation method or one of them is pressing F today. Ku Hong says no way, since he was trapped for almost 100 years because of it and he isn't spilling the beans now. Then Xuanzi explains that the path of the golden core is a lonely one. Ku Hong drops truth bombs, saying it's ridiculous for 100-year-old brothers to crush each other just to survive. The golden guy knows he can't tank the fight and warns he's gonna release a toxic mist to take the mortals down with him. Xuanzi, out of patience, charges up an attack with his purpled screaming his ex-partner's name. The attack turns into an insane golden dragon, and he warns that if the beast doesn't hold back the mist, it's game over for the mortals down below. And the brawl goes hard, bro, with energies clashing in a massive explosion. The impact of the beef is so violent it destroys everything, and the old man's mansion turns to dust in seconds. The shockwave sends everyone flying into the air. The Grand Tutor is super ticked off seeing that his party just got cancelled. The poor guy wakes up in the rubble, totally wrecked. Now he's just a little old man in the middle of destruction. While coughing, despair hits hard as he sees his wife and kids lifeless on the ground. Alone, he stands up in the middle of the war zone that used to be his home, which is now just a pile of debris. Then he realizes the whole city turned into a living hell, and no one must have survived. It finally clicks for him that all this tragedy happened just because two cultivators decided to throw hands right there. The old guy grinds his teeth, furious that he couldn't do a thing about it. Losing it, he starts laughing like a maniac, wondering how cultivators can even exist in this world. Ever since he became an official, he used all his power to search for the path to immortality. After he became the big boss, the imperial tutor, he sent people to turn the world upside down in a treasure hunt. He searched the seas and mountains of the Xuan nation, but didn't find a single shred of proof that immortals existed. The poor guy, already desperate, remembers he had gotten old and given up on that quest. He wonders where the heck these immortals came from right when he had stopped looking. The old man, outraged, activates a bizarre power full of lightning and screams for this Huanjin thing. A blue light explodes and the system warns it's going to virtualize the scenario and return to the starting point. He explains that Huanjin is a technique he created to turn truth into illusion, kind of like a save point. And here comes the bombshell. This is already the second time, and in the last run, he was just a regular guy dreaming of becoming an official. In his first life, he was well off, got a wife, and lived that picture-perfect commercial life. It was only when he was kicking the bucket that he awakened the Huanjin, earning a true new game plus. He explains that he can't quit this life just yet. His plan is to use the destruction to rebuild the city and investigate where the cultivators went. Time passes and the city of Zhuangjing starts coming back to life. A hooded spy delivers the bad news, telling the Grand Tutor there's no sign of the two. The old man gets all bummed out and, with nothing left to do in this life, decides to activate Huanjin again. The system asks if he really wants to go back and the boss confirms it right away. We see the three phases of the MC tree: the kid, the mature version, and the old man, all about to be reset. He returns to his young form, surrounded by screens showing the life he's about to erase. Back in the boy's body, he promises that in 50 years he'll be waiting for them and orders a full restart. The system replies with a understood and the third life is about to begin. The system recaps that in year 1, his aunt thought he was possessed and the poor kid had to drink some witch's brew. On a speedrun, by year 2 he becomes a jinshi and in year 3 he lands a magistrate job. The guy already started making explosives and in year 5 he saves a prince's family, gaining an ally. The climb continues. In year 6 he gets promoted and marries the vice minister's daughter. In year 7 he has a son and in year 10 he keeps his connections strong by visiting the princess's son. 15 years later, his friend becomes emperor and in year 18 he becomes minister of war and grand tutor. In year 20, the empress is wrongfully jailed, the MC finds the culprit, but the emperor won't let her go. 5 years later, in year 25, the MC gets snitched on for visiting the empress at the palace. Things get heated between them, and when the emperor kicks the bucket, the MC and the empress rise to power. And here we see the deceased, the ex-emperor, who got sent to the Shadow Realm for being an obstacle in the MC's path. With the path clear, in year 26 he becomes the top dog and by 30 the new emperor is just for show. And the final blow in year 31, the Dowager Empress gives him another son, securing the power within the family. But life takes its toll and everyone starts passing away, until in year 50 the Immortals show up again. The simulation ends and the system offers rewards item, cultivation memory, or skill acceleration. The MC returns to normal totally glitched out, not knowing if that was real or an illusion. He leaves the philosophy aside and focuses on the 4 reward options. The MC already ditches the first 2, because since he was mortal in the simulation, there's no item or cultivation worth anything. The memory option seems risky, so to be safe only the 4th option remains. He explains that the Huanjin needs to charge up to save his life, which is how he managed to escape before. Therefore, the smart choice is the 4th one. The system shows Li Fan with a mental age of 166 years, adding up the 3 lives. Then comes the lecture about the erosion of time on the soul, but the system says his mind is armored. The MC says that once he enters cultivation this won't be a problem, and focuses on the secrets of the 2. He starts planning his revenge, remembering the weapons, explosives, and that deadly mist. The MC decides to send people to investigate the bottom of the abyss, where those guys came from. He remembers that in his past life he felt empty and confused, even while being at the top. He had already conquered everything, power and pleasure. But it got boring and he even thought about quitting. But the appearance of the cultivators changed the game, and he saw a new world opening up. Now with fire in his eyes, he decides to cultivate, and sends a message that he'll meet those 2 in 50 years. With the experience of 2 lives he passes the imperial exams. He chooses to go to a small county, and uses his fame to call up his buddies from the past life. The strategy changes. In year 4 he finds a lookalike for the prince, and in year 5 he stages a fake attack to switch the 2. The MC in year 9 already secures a son with the Grand Scholar's granddaughter. In year 15, when the Emperor is on his last legs, the MC makes his move and puts the fake prince on the throne. In year 20, he puts his own son as Emperor and rules the world. 35 years later, a spy reports that the abyss mist vanishes for half a day every 15 years. The hooded guy says they kept watch and saw a little light coming from the bottom when the mist disappeared. Using a telescope, they saw a landscape with magnificent structures down there. There were giant cities and beasts flying in the sky, a true new world hidden away. The Grand Tutor, now old, confirms that the cultivators really came from there. The minion mentions they tried to go down, but a sinister wind shredded the crew and their armor. The Grand Tutor stays quiet, dismisses the employee, and keeps mulling over the plans. Alone under the moon, he accepts that he'll have to wait for those 2 clowns to show up. Time flies to year 50 in the city of Xuanjing, on a night before the storm. And sure enough, colorful energies rip through the sky for round 2 of the beef. Up there, the 2 stare each other down and the buff fire guy yells at Xuanzi not to push his luck. Only this time, a rain of rockets shoots up from the city straight at them. Qiu Hong, caught off guard, screams in a rage wanting to know who is attacking. The MC's squad doesn't waste time and just holds down the trigger. The welcome party for these guys was strictly gunpowder based. Xuanzi, showing off as usual, stops the bullets in mid-air and wonders what kind of trashy metal balls these are. But the soldiers don't even blink and immediately reload their weapons. Seeing this, the fire Jimbro grabs a gun, actually impressed, and comments that it's interesting how they made something like this without spiritual energy. But his ego takes over, and he says this janky gadget only works in this cursed land. Then, thinking it's absurd for mere mortals to step up to cultivators, he says he wants to see everyone turn into barbecue. Pissed off, he announces his special move. He's gonna throw the Dao Art, Fire Dragon Roar, right at the crowd. And this dude isn't playing around, he summons a massive fire dragon. The dragon dives straight into the city, and the damage this thing is gonna cause, my friend. The whole city gets swallowed by flames, and the attack turns everything into a sea of fire. One of the soldiers stands there in shock, staring at the destruction in disbelief. Ku Hong himself glitches out, not understanding how his attack didn't wipe the mortals off the map. Amidst the blaze, the soldiers are still standing, and the cultivator wonders why so many people are still alive. Xuanzi catches on and warns that the weapons were bathed in mortal blood, and the mist made their arts weak. Out of the smoke appears the MC, and Xuanzi realizes they walked into an ambush, and the enemy used the mist on purpose. Both see it's a trap and decide to bolt. Xuanzi yells to his partner that they gotta get out of there right now. But the MC gives it to them straight. If these 2 clowns run away, by tomorrow the whole world will know they found the gold mine. The 2 are shocked, wondering how the news leaked since only they knew the secret. Before they can think too much, another round of attacks comes flying in. This time it's cannonballs. The Hothid loses his patience, screams that they're asking to get deleted, and prepares to throw down. Xuanzi panics and screams for his partner to dodge fast. But it was too late. The cannonballs explode on them, creating a shower of ketchup everywhere. The city, which was already burning, now gets hit with a rain of blood. The 2 cultivators are down on the ground, surrounded by the MC's soldiers. An officer approaches and warns that if they surrender, the Grand Tutor might spare their lives. Xuanzi, already totally wrecked, just laughs because surrender is a word that doesn't exist in his dictionary. He looks at his friend's storage ring, who is about to game end, with a face full of pure despair and hatred. At that moment, Qiu Hong, all covered in blood, hands the ring to his friend and tells him to scramble. And with that, Kuhong bites the dust because the gym bro couldn't tank it. From his body, a golden dragon energy rises to the heavens. The dragon roars one last time and vanishes in the final farewell of the cultivator, who underestimated the nobodies. The system appears explaining the deceased stats lived 205 years, but his cultivation base was bugged by the mist. Now with his body and Tao destroyed, he's just a statistic. The officer repeats the offer to Zhuanzi, who's sitting there all messed up, guaranteeing his life if he turns himself in. The Grand Tutor watches from above and hears a strange voice from the sky. But he quickly dismisses the voice, and is surprised by how lethal the mist was for the cultivators. Zhuanzi stands up, all patched together, stares at the troops, and says there's nothing left to say after everything. With eyes glowing with hate, he warns that he cannot accept this defeat. He revolts, feeling that his brother's death was in vain. Then, he stands up and announces that everyone there saw the mystical object his brother left behind. Full of attitude, he invites the crowd to take a look at the object. He raises his hand and says he builds his cultivation base with the wonders of the sky. Then he reveals his foundation, the Daoshuan, which looks like a giant crystal. The guy releases a purple energy that explodes everywhere. But out of nowhere, the Grand Tutor just mumbles Huanjin and pulls the plug on the simulation again. The simulation ends and the MC returns panting, admitting that without the mist, he couldn't tank those two even if he reincarnated 100 times. He's surprised the mist took Kuhong out and realizes their friendship was stronger than he imagined. The MC sees the friendship was real, one gave a warning and the other sacrificed himself, true partners. He recalls that the path of the Golden Core is lonely and wonders what would happen if they were in different worlds. With a mischievous smirk, he says he won't give up and, with his ability, believes nothing can stop him. He checks the system and sees his mental age increased only a little. In this fifth life, the quest for immortality is proving to be a tough nut to crack. We arrive at year 35, in the infinite abyss. The MC knows the mist disappears every 15 years and went there to check it out. After a while, a crazy wind blows out of the abyss, and the white mist rises to the sky like a reverse waterfall. The wind lasts about 15 minutes until the mist vanishes, and the MC, now an old geezer, pulls out a telescope to spy. He remembers that the scene at the bottom of the abyss changes for every person, and is ready to see any kind of weirdness. And through the lens, he sees a dark hole with a light. But what he sees written at the bottom makes his hair stand on end. The phrase "the immortal Tao is dead" appears in red. The Grand Tutor is shocked and wonders what the hell happened there, and to the entire cultivation world. We jump back to year 15 and the beef is on. Kuhong, all battered, yells at Zhuanzi that he crossed the line. But the tables have turned and Zhuanzi shows up with a private army, telling Kuhong he was already expecting him. Kuhong doesn't understand anything, wondering how his ex-partner knew, and realizes he's being attacked with the mist. He calls Zhuanzi a snake for betraying him so blatantly. Zhuanzi gets confused, demanding to know who these mortals are, and shouts that these soldiers aren't his. Then our MC, the Grand Tutor, pops up to add fuel to the fire and collect on the deal with Zhuanzi. Kuhong totally loses it and accuses Zhuanzi of running his mouth about the cultivation method, his mind racing. From the middle of the water, the MC spits poison, revealing he knows about the method and that Zhuanzi started the trouble. The MC says Zhuanzi's reputation is toast, but suddenly the cultivator finds who is looking for and tells the MC to shut up. Zhuanzi wastes no time and lunges at the MC with an attack of purple energy tearing through everything. He throws a talisman at the MC, who wonders if the immortal tries to silence him with death. The MC, already pissed and smiling, doesn't understand what artifact that is and finds the guy surprisingly cautious. Zhuanzi summons a weird black box, which looks more like an ancient safe with a bizarre power. Kuhong, seeing the betrayal, revolts and screams that in 100 years he never thought Zhuanzi was so two-faced. Full of hate, he decides not to run, challenges Zhuanzi to a brawl, and preps the fire dragon's wrath. A gigantic pillar of fire rises to the skies, with Kuhong pouring all his energy into this desperate attack. Zhuanzi gives a calm smirk chill, as if he expected this reaction from his ex-friend. With total calm, he draws his purple sword, ready to return the hit with the same intensity. The energies of fire and purple lightning clash in an explosion and the city sky turns into a light show. From the roof, the Grand Tutor watches the beef and orders his sons to help Kuhong stomp the traitor. Kuhong, glowing all over, says whoever commits injustice digs their own grave and that Zhuanzi got burned. Zhuanzi gets pissed, loses his patience, and can only scream, "You idiot." Kuhong, already mocking him, says he has a new technique and announces the imprisoning dragon to send his partner to the afterlife. Chains of fire appear out of nowhere and bind Zhuanzi, leaving the guy completely tied up. But Zhuanzi releases a wave of purple power and screams for the chain to break while trying to escape. With an explosion, he breaks free and immediately counterattacks, summoning the giant purple sword right at Kuhong. With a look of pure hatred, he invokes the power of the foundation, screaming Dao Xuan for the finishing blow. The giant sword comes down with insane pressure that looks like it's gonna split the city in half. Kuhong prepares to strike back, wants to see if the Dao Xuan is stronger than his staff, and activates the dragon transformation. He transforms into a giant golden dragon and charges at the sword in a clash of titans. Out of nowhere, the MC appears with fire attacks and shouts that he's gonna give Kuhong a hand, playing both sides. The surprise attack hits Zhuanzi dead on, who screams in pain while fruit punch flies everywhere. Swansea gets desperate seeing a tree branch sprouting from his chest in a bizarre attack. The branch starts to grow and spread through his body, consuming the guy from the inside out like a parasite. His body is dominated by red roots and he gets game-ended in a pretty grotesque way. The system appears again telling Zhuanzi's story, another one who kicked the bucket leaving the sword behind. The Grand Tutor, now with a cane, recognizes the system's voice that appeared when Ku Hong became a memory. Ku Hong relaxes with no enemies left and hears the MC introduce himself. The old geezer, acting humble, asks for mercy. The cultivator, already suspicious, figures out the voice from earlier was the MC and can't believe the mortal's audacity. The old geezer, bold as brass, says he only wanted to survive and blames the cultivator to get off the hook. The cultivator philosophizes that everyone fights to survive, and the MC takes the chance to remind him of an old promise. But Ku Hong cuts the crap, says Xuanzi was a liar, and that the formation doesn't take mortals along. The Grand Tutor, looking totally dumbfounded, can't believe the cultivator doesn't know how to get out of there either. The guy confirms it, and the MC, all polite like, invites the immortal master to a private spot to chew the fat. So, they go to an underground shelter, and the MC cuts straight to the chase, wanting to know if the story about mortals not being able to leave is just a load of baloney. Ku Hong says he wouldn't lie to a simple mortal, explaining that maybe a golden core cultivator could pull it off, but at his level, it's a no-go. Then the old man looks totally devastated, wearing a face of pure defeat, wondering if there's zero hope for mortals to get out. The cultivator confirms a mortal body can't handle the crossing and starts roasting him, saying the MC is too old and should just enjoy his retirement. But the MC doesn't quit and fishes for info, asking if one of his descendants could make it out if they reach the same level. Ku Hong busts out laughing and says it's impossible to cultivate there due to a lack of energy, mocking him by saying immortals and moles and mortals go together like oil and water. So he advises the old man to give up, since for a mortal to cultivate, they'd have to go to the outside world and purify themselves from the mist first. The MC, already shaken by the news, asks desperately if there really isn't any other way out. The cultivator says there really isn't, and the old man, faking resignation, says his goodbyes and claims he's gonna hit the road. But the moment he turns his back, the MC vanishes into the shadows, and the cultivator instantly senses danger, realizing the little old man wasn't harmless after all. Out of nowhere, the deadly mist attacks Ku Hong by surprise, and he can't believe he got played by a mortal. The old man, just watching from afar, hears the cultivator's screams of agony and sees that the plan worked like a charm once again. With a cold stare, the MC reflects that if immortals and mortals can't coexist, he can't trust a word they say. The old man is suspicion personified. Then we find out this place is a cursed land, where everything started with a plague nobody cared about until the first cultivator kicked the bucket. The problem was the disease used spiritual energy itself to spread, making their cultivation base regress or turning the guy into cosmic dust. In pure desperation, the cultivators blamed the mortals and started stomping everyone, a massacre that only stopped when someone pumped the brakes. But sending the mortals to the afterlife didn't help. The plague got nastier and took a bunch of cultivators down the hole with them. So the crowd split up, with one crew researching a cure and another group coming up with the radical idea of the Grand Migration Plan. The plan was pretty simple: banish all mortals to lower worlds and seal the passage forever, guaranteeing they'd never come back. The issue is that not every cultivator's kid was born with talent, so new mortals popped up and were born with a shadow of this plague in their bodies. And since this disease was fatal for those who cultivated, anyone wanting to follow that path had to purify themselves of this so-called mortal miasma. Legend says that to keep the clans from losing their cool, they named these exiles the Immortal Abandoned Lands, a fancy name for the middle of nowhere. The Grand Tutor, already stressing out, has no clue how many lands exist and knows finding 2 cultivators was a stroke of insane luck. The old man is on a countdown, already 70 years old with a limit of 86, thinking the chance of finding another one in 16 years is basically zero. He despairs, asking himself if he's gonna live as a mortal forever because, after waiting almost 300 years, he can't accept that destiny. With fire in his eyes, the old guy refuses to bow his head and lets out a neo so loud it must have made the ground shake. The old man then goes straight to the source and stares down the battered cultivator, wanting to know how the mortals from the Grand Migration ended up there. The musclehead, even though he's broken, still cracks a joke, asking if the MC hasn't given up and why a 70-year-old geezer wants to become immortal. Then the MC drops a truth bomb on him, saying his cultivation base is toast and he can't cultivate anymore, leaving the big guy in shock. Holding all the cards, the old man makes a proposal. If the guy helps him reach the cultivation world, maybe he'll take him along when the time is right. The prisoner gets ticked off and calls the MC a treacherous villain, thinking the old man is trying to scam him again. But our old guy has the gift of gab and plays the hope card, saying it's their only chance not to turn to dust in that hole. The big guy gets thoughtful and finally caves, speculating they must have used magic artifacts like arcs or flying ships to move that many people. Then the musclehead says the cultivation world used to be prosperous and full of ships, but an apocalypse hit and everyone packed up their toys. The old man, connecting the dots, asks if this cataclysm was that bizarre plague he'd heard about. But the big guy bursts his bubble and explains the real trouble was a calamity that sent most people to the grave and let the miasma spread. And here comes the crazy part. It seems there's only a single great Tao of the golden core, which means there are way more people at the bottom than at the top. The MC, mulling over the drama, asks if maybe immortal techniques can only be cultivated by a single person. And the prisoner confirms it straight up, saying that's exactly it. The techniques became exclusive. There can be only one per method, Highlander style. He goes on to explain that back in the day, clans opened their doors and shared knowledge without all this nonsense. The squad could train together and chat freely in a cultivation world full of life and good vibes. But one day, cultivation efficiency dropped, and they found out that the more people used a method, the weaker it got for everyone. Then all hell broke loose. Masters, apprentices, and clan brothers became mortal enemies, fighting to the death to see who kept the spot. And it was no use trying to hide in the woods. The cultivators who tried to exile themselves couldn't escape this bloody hunt. The reason was sinister because anyone using the same method could sense the other's location, working like a GPS for a beatdown. The MC, curious as ever, wants to know how folks get by nowadays if the techniques are exclusive. The big guy then lists the options, starting with the Myriad Immortals Alliance, which is basically a cultivator co-op. The system there is simple. You do missions for contribution points, and then trade those points for methods and resources. The second option is the Council of Five Elders, where if you have talent they take you in, but the price is signing a soul contract and becoming an employee. The old man thinks the story is weird and comments that, from the description, cultivation methods don't even seem that rare out there. The guy gives a bitter smile and drops the truth that these methods are incomplete, created just as a stopgap and limited to the peak of QI condensation. And to illustrate, he cites the purple cloud art, which is just a fragment limited to this first stage of power. Next, he talks about the 9 revolutions amplification art, another fragmented technique that's only good for the foundation, like a demo version. Even the solar art, which is a fragment for the golden core, has limits, forcing the cultivator to reset their build and start a new method at every level. The MC gets outraged, questioning if he's going to have to switch techniques every time and throw all his effort in the trash. But the muscle head calms the old man down and reveals everyone practices a piece of the supreme primordial true scripture, which is like a secret technique. The function of this scripture is to allow the cultivator to disperse their power without losing much progress, bouncing back to the previous level quickly after switching. The Grand Tutor is jaw-dropped at the overpowered method. Realizing this hack was what convinced the crowd to accept this life of constant swapping. The prisoner, getting melancholic, laments that a true method is rare, and says Dao Zhuanzi kicked the bucket without knowing there was a shortcut to the nascent soul. The old man gets hooked on the info about the nascent soul, seeing the conversation finally got back to what really matters. The big guy mentions an old rumor that some mortals from the abandoned lands managed to return, but he thinks it's just gossip. But our MC is stubborn and drops the famous "where there's smoke, there's fire," warning he won't give up as long as there's hope. The muscle head, out of patience, grumbles he doesn't get how an old geezer with one foot in the grave can be so hyped and optimistic. The Grand Tutor ignores him and throws the final bait, promising to free the guy and return all his and Xuanzi's belongings if he helps. And to seal the deal, he adds the most coveted item to the package, the true method to reach the nascent soul. The prisoner, eyes wide open, asks if the MC is serious, and the old man confirms it's 100% true. With the proposal on the table, the big guy doesn't think twice and yells he'll help with everything, since greed spoke louder. With the help of his new partner, the MC dives into historical books, hunting for any clue about the Grand Migration. At the same time, he puts the army to dig up ancient tomes, telling everyone to shut their traps about the population's complaints. 16 years later, the old man is in the secret basement, older and worn out, sensing the end is near without having found anything useful. The old guy's body is wrecked, fragile like a candle in the wind, and he knows he could punch his ticket at any moment. Before he becomes history, he decides to take one last look at the items and focuses on the storage ring he got in the fight. Inside the ring, he finds the method for the nascent soul, but the irony is cruel. He's just a mortal without the power to use this mountain of gold. The old man remembers Dao Zhuanzi's sword should have turned to scrap when the owner passed away, losing its power. But when he looks at the sword, his eyes almost pop out because the thing is glowing with blue energy, defying everything. And to top it all off, the system beeps saying a rechargeable item was found and asks if he wants to charge the sword. The old man, without even blinking, stares at the notification and sends a dry yes, decided not to miss the chance. The sword starts breaking down into blue pixels, the charge is at 1%, and he has a measly anchor point to start the game. He understands that when the charge hits 100%, he unlocks a second anchor point and can choose where to restart his life. With a determined look, the MC thinks that if he manages to get the heck out of there, he'll have a truckload of cool items to loot in the cultivation world. He takes one last look at the ring with some lame spirit stones and decides that's enough, announcing it's time to end this life. The MC summons the in-game system, which gives 4 options, including inheriting an item, his level, his memory, or speeding up the recharge. His young and handsome version appears, and without thinking twice, he chooses the option to keep one item from his past life. A rain of items flies out of the storage ring, and the kid gets frustrated, grumbling that he can't take the whole bag. With little choice, he focuses on the main prize, grabs the golden scroll, and decides to take the nascent soul method. The status panel updates to Lee Fan, 20 years old, mentality of 282, with the item now bound to him forever. With a cheeky smirk, he realizes the game has changed, and having a bound item opens up a range of possibilities he never imagined. He reflects that the idea of mass excavating tomes in his past life was too shocking and caused opposition, even with total control. The MC now gets that if he had planned from the start, in 20 years he could have changed people's minds and played it differently. And so time passes with the MC acting behind the scenes and causing small changes in the world, playing 4D chess. In year 5, the School of Ancient Search pops up out of nowhere and presents some ancient text to the Emperor that shocked the nation. A year later, the Emperor gets sick as a dog and the palace doctors throw in the towel. Just in the nick of time, that school shows up with a miraculous elixir, and the Emperor, seeing light at the end of the tunnel, knocks it back. And wouldn't you know it worked? The Emperor recovered completely in a few days, looking younger than ever. Fast forward to year 11, where the police uncover a massive tome raiding case and arrest over 100 thieves. The Emperor, in a plot twist, pardons their death sentence and orders them to be enslaved and taken to the capital. Before kicking the bucket, the Emperor passes the crown to a puppet, and our MC goes back to controlling the world from the shadows with his street smarts. We reach year 23, where the excavation of a tome reveals a forgotten dynasty called QI. The MC, a board manipulator, puts out a public bounty. Anyone who finds a QI dynasty tome gets the title of Marquis, and the crowd goes absolutely nuts. 2 years later, the plan pays off, and they find the first Emperor's tome. In 1 month, they dig out the path, and the MC goes in with the elite squad. The hallway is massive, stretching for hundreds of meters, with walls covered in murals that look brand spanking new. They reach the main chamber, and the ceiling mimics a starry sky, with a sea of clouds underneath that never faded away. The crew walks along invisible paths, jaws on the floor, and the MC realizes instantly that this is the work of an immortal. At the highest peak, they find a straw hut that, up close, is actually woven with gold threads. Talk about being humble. The MC, already savvy to the fact that the hut is the coffin, orders 2 guards to open the door and check it out. They obey and the door creaks open, with that thick suspense hanging in the air. The MC peeks inside and, already surprised, sees something he definitely wasn't expecting. Instead of a body, there's a plaque saying this is the Tome of Yi Sing, a mere outer disciple of the Taihang sect. Then it clicks, this so-called emperor was just a sect rookie who got exiled to this godforsaken place. The guy was so loyal he identified as a disciple even in death, and the MC, remembering the sects were wiped out, senses the trouble. He connects the dots that Yi Sing supervised the migration, and the hope of finding the flying ark comes roaring back. The search in the chamber fails, but days later, while digging around, a soldier reports they found a mention of the flying ark in a neighboring tomb. But the joy is short-lived, because the report says the chamber was looted over 1,000 years ago. The MC is devastated, feeling the same nightmare all over again, wearing a look of total defeat. Absolutely furious, he punches the table and screams "Nenati again" across the hall. Staring at his reflection in a shard, he laments that hope is unreachable, and that this old man's bad luck never ends. After the outburst, he takes a deep breath, still salty, while a subordinate stays quiet as a mouse waiting for orders. With fire in his eyes, he goes desperate and launches a new worldwide bounty, a top-tier noble title for any clue about the immortal ark. Time flies until year 35, and a servant runs to the MC, who's already an old man, reporting they found an immortal tome. He explains that a mysterious force hit the excavation team, wiping everyone out, and no one can get close. The Grand Tutor, out of patience, orders them to bring the immortal mortal miasma to break into the tome by brute force. The goons obey and throw barrels of that creepy red slime onto the energy barrier. The stuff works like a charm, dissolving the blue protection and clearing a path for the crew. Before invading, the MC orders everyone to keep their eyes peeled and report immediately if they see anything looking like an ark. Moments later, a soldier comes back screaming that they found an object, looking exactly like it amidst the treasures. The old man sprints to the spot, and the old guy's hope reignites with full force. He arrives at the chamber and freezes in disbelief, barely believing his eyes. Floating there, surrounded by blue energy, is a real flying ark. It's his ticket out of this dump. Reading the tombstone, the MC understands everything and discovers that little wooden boat was the ark he'd been searching for all along. The owner, Qian Hong, was a cultivator who fled there 3,000 years ago to avoid kicking the bucket. But with no spiritual energy in the place, his stones ran out and his cultivation base went down the drain. Desperate, he theorized there was an ark left behind and spent decades searching until he found Yi Xing's tome. There he saw the protected ark, but just his luck, the ship's spell formation was already damaged. Since he didn't know how to fix it, the guy gave up and his hope died right there. On the tombstone, he left a note saying whoever found it could take one of the 4 items, and the MC, feeling confident, goes to check them out. The first item is a stone with a weird symbol, which the system identifies as a fragment of the Stele of Disruption. The MC realizes it was protecting the tome, but since he used the miasma, the fragment lost its power and turned into a regular rock. Unfazed, he moves to the 2 cultivation scrolls, but the system warns that there are already 7 crazy dudes using each one. The old man gets suspicious, wondering how people are already cultivating that and if it's a trap. But he soon dismisses it, since 3,000 years have passed, although the question of who's using them still bugs him. Then he has an epiphany: what if the methods have a master copy stored somewhere? He concludes that the guilds must have compiled these incomplete methods and put them back on the shelf for another sucker to pick up. The old man looks at the scrolls with disgust, calls them corrupt, and throws both on the ground. Then he turns to the third option, the Taihang Arc, which finally fell into his clutches after centuries. Not giving a damn about the damage, he thinks that even if Li Fan can't fix it, he knows someone who can solve it. Going back 50 years in time, Dao Zhuanzi corners Ku Hong, shamelessly demanding the stolen technique. A third voice, the MCs, interrupts the beef, questioning if it's worth killing each other over core formation. The two are shocked, asking who the Joker is, and see the MC floating imposingly in a portal. The old man, looking sharp and acting like a boss, invites him down to have a chat. Ku Hong laughs, accepts the invite, and offers a seat. Time for a coffee break. Cup in hand, the Grand Tutor says his ancestor predicted 2 people would come from the ruins to give the clan a chance to escape. Suspicious, Ku Hong asks for the mysterious elder's name. Comfortable, the MC introduces himself as Li Fan and watches the dude's reaction. Zhuanzi is skeptical about this 1,000-year prediction and wants to know what this chance to escape talk is all about. The MC, now with a steely gaze, asks if they doubt his word. Ku Hong says it's too much of a fantasy, because in 100 years of roaming around, he's never heard of a deduction art that precise. So the MC throws the bait, asking if they've ever heard of the Taiyan sect. Ku Hong screams, shocked, asking if it's that ancient sect famous for deduction. The old man lets out a sigh of relief. The first part of the plan worked. Acting superior, he confirms the ancestor was a member of the Taiyan sect. Feeling like a prophet himself, he explains that the ancestor quit cultivation for deduction, but during the apocalypse, he stayed behind to supervise the family's migration. Calmer now, Zhuanzi wants to know why the MC interrupted the fight. The MC says that since no one had stepped foot there for millennia, he figured they were the key to the prophecy and stepped in. Zhuanzi smiles, saying methods are rare out there, so it's normal to brawl over a scroll. The old man, looking fed up, laments the situation, and Zhuanzi realizes there's something else going on. Then the MC reveals that before kicking the bucket, his son left a cultivation method for the golden core. Ku Hong pounds the table excited, but Zhuanzi wants to know the price of this big gift. The MC tells them the plan: the ancestor predicted the arrival of a sword expert and a refining expert to fix the Taihang Arc. Zhuanzi is shocked because the prediction was spot on. His brother is good at refining, and he's a sword guy. Cutting the chat short, the old man invites both of them to see the method with their own eyes. Zhuanzi gets up, but Ku Hong stays behind sweating, and his partner finds it weird. The musclehead gives an awkward smile, says everything's fine, and stays quiet in the corner. Zhuanzi follows the old man, who leads the way with that little master manipulator smirk. They arrive at a dark cave, and Zhuanzi, suspicious, asks what's going on. Suddenly, a red mist rises and Zhuanzi yells immortal miasma, realizing it's a trap. The MC, playing the victim, says that being mortals, they had to use these tricks to protect the treasure. With total boldness, he offers the cultivation method left by the ancestor. He pulls out the scroll and the system shows golden chapter of the Cosmos of 1,000 Mysteries, a nascent soul method with 0 users. Zhuanzi shakes in his boots, stammering if that's really for the nascent soul, completely shocked. Inside, the MC is laughing, knowing the reaction would be exactly this. Acting all superior, the old man rubs it in that he lied about the golden core to avoid greed. But this is the real deal. Impressed, Zhuanzi bows and guarantees he'll convince his brother to fix the arc. The old man forces a laugh, promising to hand over the method as soon as the job is done. Later, Ku Hong asks confusedly if Li Fan's story was true. Zhuanzi confirms he saw it with his own eyes, his gaze already taken over by greed. Ku Hong, smiling like a psychopath, decides to take the method from the mere mortal by brute force. Zhuanzi, the brains of the duo, stops his partner, reminding him that Li Fan is from the divination sect and might have an ace up his sleeve. He says it's better to play it cool, otherwise the desperate old man might leak that the technique is for nascent soul, which would be a disaster. The next day, the MC hands over the arc, and Ku Hong, excited about the progress in his Dao, starts the job with everything paid for by the old man. The repair takes almost a year, and when they finish, they explain they could only do simple repairs due to lack of materials. Examining the arc, the old man thinks it's enough to break the barrier and go back to his sect. Ku Hong explains the ship has 3 sizes: 10, 100, and 1,000 meters, but the max form uses energy they don't have. With a cheeky smile, he says it needs divine sense to pilot and offers to do the job. But the old man surprises them, jumps onto the arc, and with a golden glow, activates the ship all by himself, shutting them both up. Ku Hong is shocked that a mortal controlled the arc and praises the MC's methods. Acting all humble, the old man says it was a cheap trick and thanks them for the help, happy with the hope of escape. Then he cuts to the chase about the cultivation method, saying it's all ready for delivery. 3 days later, already with the method, the duo says goodbye, explaining they need to bail so they don't risk their cultivation base. Ku Hong, all hyped up, beats his chest and tells the MC to look him up in Lingshan if he makes it out, thinking he's the old man's best bud. Then he hands over a map drawn from memory. Since he didn't have a jade slip, he used paper and a brush, which leaves the MC pretty grateful. Right after the small talk, the two turn into streaks of light and dip out, leaving the old man behind. While flying, Kuhong brings up Li Fan, saying it's a shame the old guy is at the end of his rope with only a few years left. Swansea, getting all philosophical, replies that without longevity, everything else is just an illusion, reminding him they almost killed each other over it. Curious, Kuhong asks what method Li Fan passed on, wanting to know if it's the same as his. Swansea, already smirking, tells him not to sweat it. He promises that as soon as he advances to the Golden Core, he'll fulfill the 3 promises. They get close to the mist and Zhuanzi, feeling challenging, asks if his bro has the guts to go first. Kuhong, fearing absolutely nothing, laughs and says there's nothing to be scared of, diving headfirst into the barrier. Finally free, they fly toward the abyssal ruins. The road home is wide open, my friend. Back on the Ark, the MC crunches the numbers. He's only got 14 years until the mist vanishes, and he's already 71, pushing the limit of 85. Already determined, he decides he's got nothing to lose and is going to test the formation separating the worlds the hard way. The Taihang Ark, with the MC at the helm, charges full speed at the barrier. The old man is going for all or nothing. The ship enters the mist and the MC gets surrounded by an infinite white void, feeling a bizarre sense of unreality. Out of nowhere, the hull shakes violently, like it hit something. This crossing ain't gonna be a walk in the park. He wonders if it's the astral winged layer, remembering that even a tough cultivator gets sliced and diced if they don't protect themselves. Half an hour later, after a major struggle, the old man crosses the wind. The little boat tanked the hit. The shaking stops and an endless light blinds the MC, giving him an indescribable feeling of victory. And he actually escaped. In the cultivation world. He found a rare method and formed the Golden Core in 100 years. From then on it was straight success. 1,000 years later, he reached the Tao and ascended, becoming a legend. In the immortal realm, he climbed step by step until he became the immortal emperor, the toughest guy on the block. Then he broke the barrier and went up to the realm of the gods. The MC is insatiable, my friend. Starting as a minor, in 10,000 years he became the king of gods, the supreme existence. After a bunch of struggles, he reached the primeval god realm and became a doorman. Every world is a fresh start. But suddenly the vision shatters and the old man wakes up upside down, totally confused and clueless. He wonders if it was all an illusion from the light and doesn't get why the Ark flipped over out of nowhere. Looking at the map, he realizes he passed through the illusion and reached the 3rd layer, the immortal abandoned continent. The autopilot is beastly. At that moment, he figures out he only woke up because the ship exited the illusion on its own, while he's hanging from the ceiling, totally lost. The old man has an epiphany. If the Ark navigates by itself, he just needs to leave it on auto and supply energy. And his intuition was spot on. The ship steers and he floors the gas, just going with the flow. The plan works smoothly and the Ark arrives at the 4th layer, fluid fire, which is a burning hellscape. The MC gets it now. Since the Ark is for mortals, the creator left a setup for it to pass through dangers on its own. Already smelling success, he decides to just pump in energy and let the Ark fly solo. The ship passes through the 5th layer, deep ice, dodging storms and crises like it was nothing. They reach the 7th and final layer, the darkness. After so many scares, they're still in one piece. From what Kuhong said, this part is chill, just endless pitch black with no danger. The old man gets all excited, thinking the cultivation world is waiting for him after 6 lives of trying. Except out of nowhere, the Ark flies straight into the mouth of a sea monster. The old man didn't even catch the license plate number. With no time to react, he screams the system command, and the simulation ends with the game over screen. The MC, young again, wakes up panting, wondering why the other two didn't find that beast. Then he thinks it over and comes to a scary conclusion. Maybe the creature only attacks mortals. Even failing, the gains were huge. The status shows 2 linked items, the method in the Taihang Ark. In year 4 of the 7th life, he goes back to the tome and uses a miasma spray to corrode the barrier without damaging the artifact. With the barrier weak, he touches the interruption stele, and the system asks if he wants to give the item a charge. He accepts and the anchor goes up to 26%. He calculates that 3 more times will unlock the 2nd point. With nothing valuable left, he seals the place and dips, but curiosity hits and in year 5 he goes back to the ruins. He stands at the edge of the abyss promising just to look, but we know he won't be able to help himself. In the end, his will wins out and he jumps into the abyss, vanishing into the mist. With bloodshot eyes, he reflects that if he piloted the Ark right now, he'd reach the immortal realm. The temptation is real. He questions if he needs to wait another 15 years, with impatience hitting hard. Already defiant, he throws a so what at the uncharged system. He knows he won't reach the Great Tao by being a coward. Determined, he decides to risk it. He already knows the way and, if he dodges the monster, he finally gets out of there. The badass is full of confidence, believing that if he jukes the beast in the darkness, he'll be free of this cursed place. Without thinking twice, the kid jumps in with everything he's got. Courage isn't the problem, son. But as soon as he enters, a bad vibe takes over and a message warns that the path to immortality is toast. The MC wakes up startled, sweating, realizing that voices tried to get into his mind and only a light saved his skin. 15 years later, with the system at 100%, he returns piloting the Taihang arc to the lightning storm. He stops at the border of the darkness and with a spooky wind blowing, uses the arc's lights to scan the area. But he finds nothing. Seeing the light running out, he decides not to hesitate and dives into the pitch black. Instantly, he gets swallowed by a huge maw and kicks the bucket without understanding a thing. The old man is pissed, confirming that the aquatic boogeyman has a grudge against mortals and eats anyone who slips up. But this time it won't be easy. The MC cranks up the arc's brightness, trying to escape the trap. With the face of someone who's not bluffing, he screams for the ship to shoot up, in pure desperation. And wouldn't you know it works. The arc shoots off like a rocket, escaping back to the storm by a hair. Realizing the beast stopped at the storm, he uses the light from the lightning to see the ugly mug of that thing. The sight is jaw-dropping and the old man stands there in shock, terrified by what he sees. He wonders what the hell that is, a colossal cosmic whale that makes the arc look like a grain of sand. Indignant, he doesn't understand how the whale finds the tiny arc every time, but warns that he's not giving up. Over the next 15 years, he tried forcing his way through multiple times, but the whale snacked on him faster each time. Things got ugly. It was just enter, trade a few blows, and leave defeated. In year 35, now bearded, he realizes the whale gets distracted when the white mist recedes. That extra time is the key. No more caution. The old man floors it to cross the darkness at light speed before the whale can blink. The MC is flying a million miles an hour seeing a bizarre scene below, but the whale's roar crashes the party. As always, the comedian opens its hungry maw to turn the MC into a snack. Seeing that the jig is up, he yells the command and activates Return to Truth to reset. Instantly game over appears, another attempt bit the dust. In the menu, the system offers inheritances, but the MC, totally fed up, says forget it and speeds up the loading. In the status, he notices a detail: his psychological age stopped going up, his brain finally hit the limit. Still young, he gives a little smirk, thinking he's got 748 years to burn. 8th life, year 4, looking stylish in red, he goes back to the tome, which has already become a tourist spot. He touches the stale and the anchor hits 51%. Satisfied, he thinks that life wasn't a waste. In year 5, the mist disappears and the charge is almost 90. But since it's not 100, he has to wait. Time flies. In year 20 he fails. In 35 he becomes Will Dinner again. But it's not all bad. Maneuvering so much, his control of the arc gets razor sharp and the kid becomes a getaway driver. Reaching year 50, now a respectable old man, he decides to stop forcing it because his reflexes aren't what they used to be. He decides to look for his old friends for clues and even feels nostalgic watching the duo fight. With the usual excuse, he takes the two to the mansion and, after some drinks, whips out the drawing of the whale. He plays them, saying an ancestor warned him to be careful about a monster in the final layer. Kyuhong is shocked, not understanding how he didn't see that huge beast. Xuanzi gets thoughtful and the MC, being sharp, asks if his buddy knows the beast. Xuanzi says he saw something in ancient texts about a sect that used domestication to control beasts. Kyuhong has an epiphany and remembers the name rift-splitting whale, looking like he nailed the answer. The old man asks how to lose the whale, but they say it's just gossip, and they don't know jack about the creature's habits. Looking disappointed, the MC sees he's gonna have to handle this alone. The protagonist's life ain't easy. After sending the duo away, he ends the life. In the 9th reincarnation, he goes back to the tome. But the system doesn't even blink. Time passes, he tries to break the blockade and fails. At 85 years old, he feels the end coming. Already kicking the bucket. He lets go and lets the arc descend through the layers and Jesus take the wheel mode. The ship descends smoothly through the ice and storm, reaching the darkness. The autopilot is beastly. The arc crosses everything like it was nothing, diving deep into the darkness. Out of nowhere, the old man's eyes go wide, looking totally confused, almost having a heart attack from the surprise. He finds it weird that the whale hasn't even shown its face this time, since he's almost at the bottom of the abyss, and the monster apparently took a vacation. Right then, a golden light pops up in the darkness, and the old guy, realizing this is his shot, screams that he can't lose and floors it with everything he's got. The arc turns into a rocket straight for the light, with the MC going all in, no time for sob stories. But good things never last, and the whale pops up out of nowhere, charging in and showing that vacation time is over early. The giant maw comes crashing down, and the MC, already panicking, asks himself why on earth the monster decided to show up right now. Then the old guy has a stroke of genius and realizes the whale is like a radar that only picks up speed changes, ignoring objects moving at a constant pace. The old-timer starts laughing like a maniac, super stoked to have broken the last chain holding him in that place. He keeps cackling nonstop while the arc flies safely, feeling like the smartest guy in the universe for cracking the code. Amidst his villain laughter, the arc breaks the barrier between worlds, and he heads straight for cultivation with the whale's roar in the background. Everything turns into a colorful blur, crossing several worlds in a trip crazier than a psychedelic dream, bro. The pressure is so gnarly that blood starts pouring from his nose and eyes, but the old guy, totally focused, couldn't care less and just wants to get to the other side. Looking back at the formation that trapped him for uns, his perspective shifts, and he sees everything from an infinitely higher vantage point. Even though he's all banged up, he sees a nightmarish scene and makes a priceless shocked face. What he sees is that darn rift-splitting whale again, mouth wide open, screaming into the vacuum of space. But it wasn't just one buddy. Suddenly hundreds of them appear in a true school of the apocalypse. Then the camera pans out and reveals it's not hundreds, but thousands of whales in an endless swarm of monsters. The school is so massive it forms that layer of darkness, which wasn't a place, but actually them the whole time. And here comes the final plot twist: the cursed land was just one of these whale swarms, a living prison drifting away in the universe. With that, the big boss shoots out of that creepy hole, with the ark flying at full speed out of the formation. And he finally arrives in the cultivation world, a paradise with floating mountains and badass temples touching the sky. Covered in blood and with his face all messed up, the old guy confirms to himself that he achieved his lifelong goal. He thinks it was worth seeing this before checking out and calls out the system's name, Guanjin. Once again, the system appears in the darkness, warning that the simulation is over, good while it lasted. The MC, young again, reflects that it took 9 lives and almost 500 years of struggle to finally reach the doorstep of cultivation. The plan was to speed up the system loading, but he freezes when he sees the steel fragment just sitting there in the item list. After thinking it over, he decides to keep the fragment to test a hunch, and thus begins his 10th life. Since he didn't speed up the charge, he waits 20 years, and in year 3, he goes back to the tome, pulling out the fragment instead of the miasma. Then something bizarre happens: the fragment melts the barrier like ice, and the tome's formation gets even stronger. The MC realizes instantly that mystical objects are unique, and since the system cloned one, the two merge to become a single thing. Then he orders them to use the miasma spray on the rest, and upon entering, he sees the original fragment there, just a little less damaged. The system still can't absorb the energy, so the MC decides to store the strengthened fragment in the ark for the future. In year 20, with the system almost ready, the MC cleans house in the government, wiping out corrupt officials and landowners. He confiscates all the gold and jewels, knowing he's gonna need cash to deal with mortals in the cultivation world. To show who's boss, he expands the ark to the max and leaves the big boat floating above the imperial palace. The crowd hits the floor in awe, and the officials who were full of it before change their tune and start helping out of goodwill. With their help and the execution of a few wise guys, the ark gets packed to the brim, not fitting even one more grain. All set, he pilots back to the abyss, this time relaxed and on autopilot. The hours-long trip feels like centuries, but he's already used to the eerie sensation of tearing through space. The MC finally arrives in the cultivation world, but he's a bit thrown off seeing a totally different landscape. The old guy, looking like he just got scammed, doesn't get why the place changed so much since the last time. He pulls up the Quhong map, can't find the sea, and realizes he'll have to rely on luck before the ark runs out of gas. The MC picks a direction and guns it, flying for 7 days and nights without seeing a thing in that endless sea. After more than 10 days and with the battery running on fumes, the shadow of a ship appears on the horizon right at the moment of desperation. He pulls out his spyglass and is left speechless by a jaw-dropping scene, but in a bad way. The ship was going down with a giant hole and dozens of people drowning all around it. A kid in the middle of the chaos screams for everyone not to worry, because he already sent a signal for an immortal master to save everyone. The MC hears Immortal Master and sees the perfect opportunity to infiltrate and figure out where the heck he ended up. Without thinking, he stores the ark, jumps into the water, and swims stealthily toward the shipwreck victims. He blends in, pretending to be on his last legs and screaming for help, deserving an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. Suddenly, a figure appears in the sky with a blurry image, as if he were behind a smoke screen. The moment the guy shows up, total silence falls, and the MC realizes no one can make a sound. The so-called Immortal Master hovers in the air, all enigmatic and radiating power to set things straight. With a simple gesture, a giant wave lifts the sinking ship, and things get serious. Pointing a finger, the Immortal Master lifts the ship out of the water and fixes the gigantic hole in the blink of an eye. The guy, wrapped in a blue aura, floats calmly, showing that was easier than taking candy from a baby. In an instant, all the people in the water are teleported back to the deck, safe and sound. The savior floats above them and asks, with a commanding voice, which clown sent the signal. The kid, Su Changju, kneels and admits he called, while the rest of the crowd is on the floor thanking him. The master gives it to him straight: the rules are clear. Once dropped at the destination, it's not his problem, and he doesn't know the boy. The boy, now humble with his face on the floor, agrees with everything, because you can't challenge a guy like that. The master grunts ahem and makes a gesture, activating the magic again effortlessly. The MC doesn't understand the sorcery, but the ship starts moving on its own at an absurd speed. The Immortal Master stays silent at the bow, and the silence on deck is so tense you could cut it with a knife. After half a day, a light reveals a prosperous island with hundreds of giant ships in the harbor. But the ship sails right past the harbor, circles around to a deserted area, and enters a very suspicious dark cave. The ship stops in the tight cave, and several strong men in black board immediately. The big guys in black ignore the master and herd everyone out like cattle going to slaughter. The crowd is taken to a huge hall, told there's food and that ID registration happens tomorrow. As soon as the guards leave, a rich kid complains about the bad luck of running into a sea monster, and that most people kick the bucket. The rich kid keeps whining, saying he was a prince's son and doesn't get why his family sent him to this place. Another more grounded guy cuts him off, reminding him they paid a fortune to be there, so stop the tantrums. Su Chanju joins the conversation, telling them to cultivate with patience to become immortals and go get their families. The MC, just keeping an eye on things, realizes the crowd is just like him, mortals exiled from a land where immortality ran out. It clicks that the cultivation world isn't a secret back there, and there's even a human smuggling route. The MC gives a sly little smile, realizing he stumbled into a clandestine operation that could be very useful. Out of nowhere, a guy asks if the old guy was an official or rich, since he doesn't look familiar. The MC, looking like someone who's seen it all, calculates the situation with his brain racing a mile a minute. Without wasting time, the old guy shoves the nosy dude away, leaving him stunned with a scraped hand. The boss shoots him a death glare, and the clown, shaking in his boots, scrams. The nosy guy runs off scared out of his mind, thinking the old guy must be some sinister big shot to have that aura. In the morning, a guy in green announces they're going to register and become official residents of Lily Island. He tells them straight to keep their traps shut, or else he can't guarantee anyone's safety. Then he cooks up a cover story for them to memorize it. Now they are all refugees from Dayu Island, destroyed by a storm. Everyone changes clothes to look like beggars, and under watch, they leave through a secret passage in the cave. The island locals barely pay attention, looking like they're already used to this kind of scene. After a walk, they arrive at a huge mansion, and a servant runs to announce their arrival. The kid comes back and guides everyone on the down low through a side door to a gigantic hall. The hall was already packed with other groups, totaling about 100 people on the same refugee vibe. It's their group's turn, and one of the guys calls for this butler Zhao. Old man Sunjung steps up and asks if that whole crowd are the refugees for registration. But butler Zhao, acting all high and mighty, corrects him quietly that those people are all rich or noble. With a smirk, the butler confirms they were the cream of the crop of Dayu Island society. He keeps mocking them, saying that without immortal protection, wealth turned to dust, and now they seek refuge here. Sunjung comments that the storm was gnarly, wiping out 200 islands and killing everyone in the west. The old guy sucks up to the Tianbao Lu organization and promises to report everything to the Lord to guarantee the Joker's reward. Butler Zhao starts the registration, and soon it's our MC's turn. The MC and the butler exchange a look, sizing each other up, with the tension rising between them. The butler asks his name straight up, and he answers without hesitating that it's Li Fan. The guy hands him a paper and tells him to drip blood on it, in a slightly gore ID registration process. The MC doesn't think twice and pricks his finger, showing he's decisive and not playing around. He drops a single drop of his crimson sauce onto the talisman, which the butler says to guard with his life. From now on, that piece of paper is his ID. Meanwhile, old man Sunjung, who was just watching, walks over explaining that the MC is going to need this for everything, from work to inspections. He seems like a nice guy, but the MC is already suspicious. Our guy finds all this kindness from the butler toward Li Fan a bit weird, detailing everything so perfectly. There's definitely something fishy going on. With the records done in a flash and IDs in hand, instead of heading back to the cave, Sunjung takes the whole crew to a courtyard at a residence. Then Sunjung, putting on his negotiator hat, says they can finally sign the contract they agreed on. Things are getting serious. Su Changju, who seems to be leading the squad, pulls a paper out of his clothes. The kid is locked and loaded, and was already in on the scheme. Without hesitation, he pricks his finger and signs the document in blood. These people love some drama when it comes to contracts. The document has his name, Su Changju, written huge right in the middle. The dude isn't playing around about keeping his word. He explains it's the contract to finalize 3 things, and promises to sign the last one in the future, once they're settled on the island. Sunjung takes the paper, looking totally fed up, complaining that dealing with a broke kingdom is a drag, and they only agreed because of the immortal master. After the show, he explains the rules: they can get a house using the talisman, and for the first year, there's free food every month. Su Changju, always direct, wants to know right away what they need to do to cultivate. The kid doesn't waste any time. Sunjung explains that exiled mortals have way too much miasma in their bodies and need to clear out that bad energy before starting. The MC butts in the conversation, saying they were already aware and wants to know how the heck they get rid of this funk. The guy says there are several methods, but the main one is the body purifying spirit pool, 1 day and 1 night soaking in it and the miasma is gone. But there's a catch: the materials are super expensive and the water park only opens every 3 years. Since the last time was last year, they gotta wait 2 more. One of the goofballs immediately kills the vibe, warning that spots are limited, the fighting is brutal, and nobodies like them don't stand a chance. Su Changju doesn't even flinch, cuts off the wimp's chatter, and asks straight up what the other methods are. Sunjung says the second option is the deep yellow heart cleansing incantation. It takes about 5 or 6 years, but it's stable and there's elixir at the pharmacy. The kid gets bummed out by the time frame and immediately asks if there isn't an ace up the sleeve to solve it fast. At that, Sunjung gives a creepy little smile and calmly announces that the third method is Becoming a lab rat, the crowd panics and the old-timer runs off after dropping that bomb. Everyone is shocked, and Sun Jung confirms that some immortal masters have a bizarre interest in the exile's miasma. He explains the grim scheme. Every year they pick volunteers and use special methods to extract the miasma for research. But the process is pure torture. The person ends up in a state where they neither live nor get deleted, and most go crazy. A boy, already feeling sick, asks in terror if there really isn't another option. The poor guy's hope just went down the drain. Sun Jung plays his last card. Direct descendants of immortal masters can use celestial treasures to rebuild the body, which clears everything and improves aptitude. The guy sighs and dismisses the group, telling them that's all he knows, and they should think hard about their lives. He even acts all philosophical, saying he knows everyone their dreams of the Tao and went through hell. But he kills the mood immediately, warning that immortality is tough. Even without miasma, few can feel the energy, and most end up quitting. Acting like a counselor, he gives them some real talk. Instead of killing themselves over it, it's better to enjoy life and the pleasures of the moment. Su Changju, however, isn't shaken at all and clenches his fist, determined not to give up. After the old man dips, the crowd disperses and the MC hustles a free house with a guide. Flashing the talisman, he's taken to the north residential area, which is packed with houses glued to one another. The guide hands over the key and leaves, pointing to the 7th house in the 6th row, a total dump. The room is simple as heck, just a bed and a table, but the MC is cool with it. Lying down, he reflects that he's settled in without any trouble thanks to the Fallen Kingdom folks paving the way. He analyzes that, except for Su Changju, the rest of the group seems mediocre with no drive for the Tao. Now the focus is clearing the miasma. Spots in the pool are competitive, but with his treasures, getting in shouldn't be hard. But doing that right now draws too much attention, and without a base here, flashing wealth puts a target on his back. Planning his moves, he hears a knock on the door. The MC, still lying down, asks who's bothering him. A mysterious voice answers that it's him, creating suspense about who the Joker is. Predicting trouble, the MC pulls out a short sword and preps for combat. He opens the door and comes face to face with the same crazy guy he cut earlier. The dude looks like he's up to no good. Without asking for permission, the cocky guy enters, accusing the MC of not being one of them. The old-timer is totally confused. The kid continues the interrogation, wanting to know who the MC is and his goal on the island. The MC, totally unimpressed, throws the question back, wanting to know how the smartest figured it out. The guy explains he saw the MC coming out of the water at the shipwreck and thought it was a hallucination. But he connected the dots. The MC wasn't in the group when they left the kingdom, so he had to be an imposter. The MC gives a little smirk and praises his sharpness. The guy, proud, says it's obvious and the other idiots wouldn't notice. Our main guy plays dumb, asking if he's sure no one else noticed. The kid, full of arrogance, guarantees it. In the blink of an eye, the MC appears behind him and slices his gut. He got deleted without even seeing it coming. The body falls with that river of crimson sauce, and the MC doesn't even blink, used to the cleanup. With a blue flame in his hand, he mocks the stiff, saying the guy was clueless. He tells the corpse that the guy thought he was slick for figuring it out, and even had the audacity to threaten him. Kneeling, he reflects on the kid's stupidity for not thinking that the kingdom people also pretend to be refugees. He realizes that the exile identity is a secret well kept by the masters in Sun Jung. With the flame, he turns the body to dust. Without a body, if he insists he never saw the guy, no one can prove a thing. Days pass and no one notices a thing. Only Su Changju asked, but let it go. The MC wanders around the island, learning the ropes and planning how to use his treasures. He discovers the region is the Kongyan Sea, full of islands, and Lily Island is in the middle and is medium-sized. The lily fish is popular and its pearls are used to refine elixirs for the immortal masters. The main gig is fishing for lily fish on a 70-30 split, but you need special bait for the schools. The mansion controls the bait and collects it upon return. Fishing alone is prohibited and carries the death penalty. He knows a fleet came back full of fish and even found a recently shipwrecked vessel. The ship had gold and jewels. The treasure rule is the same as fishing, 30% for the finder. The island went crazy over this. Even Butler Qian went to inspect, and everyone wants a spot on the next trip. Then the MC has a light bulb moment, use a shipwreck as a front to launder his treasures, but competition is stiff. He finds out the Lord has 3 right-hand men, Zhao, Qian and Zhou. Zhou controls the spots and runs the show. Realizing talking to Zhao is hard, he decides to go through the Celestial Treasure Tower and speak to Sun Jung. But at the door, a hooded guard blocks the way and tells him to beat it. Our tough guy finds it weird being kicked out of a business and realizes the guys in black already knew who he was. He starts thinking of conspiracy theories. Did something go down with the Fallen Kingdom? And Sun Jung flipped sides. After snooping around, he discovers the truth. Su Changji became a lab rat and signed the final contract to get rid of the miasma. With the contract signed, the debt was paid and any tie with the Fallen Kingdom ended. The MC understands the cold shoulder. He just didn't expect Su Changju to be determined enough to screw himself over like that. In another scene, Sun Jung regrets trying to warn him, but the kid was stubborn. Su Changju did this craziness for his sister, who is in bad shape out of desperation. The kid is there, looking like he swallowed a frog but firm in his hard decision. The MC sees that Sun Jung isn't bad, he was just comforting the boy while keeping his distance from the exiles. Even so, the MC decides to go back to the front of the tower and push his luck again. The guard gets aggressive right away, asking if he's looking for a reason to get deleted. But the MC doesn't back down and asks loudly if this is how the tower treats people who want to do business. The crowd whispers and the guard gets put in a tight spot with the kid scene. After talking to the boss, the hooded guy comes back and takes our main guy inside. The squeaky wheel gets the grace. In a room, a lady serves tea and the MC waits, all serene. He takes a sip and praises the tea with a smirk, showing he has good taste. Sunjong appears explaining it's Dayu Pale Dragon, a rarity from extinct volcanoes. The MC, all diplomatic, thanks him for the kindness and says he's basking in Elder Sun's light. The old timer cuts the chat, saying the deal is over and wanting to know why he's being a pest. Our main guy, Chill, says it's a misunderstanding, and he's there for a top-tier business deal. Sunjong laughs mockingly, doubting he has anything to offer besides a headache. The MC doesn't even flinch, his eyes focused, showing he's not playing games. The old timer stares back, waiting to see, and the silence gets heavy. Sunjong adjusts himself and asks, more seriously, what the heck this business is. The MC keeps it real, he wants to know if the tower is interested in a spot on the fleet going to sea. Instantly, the old timer calculates the profits, remembering the trip yields treasures and lily fish. He admits straight up that he's interested. After all, nobody says no to easy money. But he drops a reality check. Joe controls the spots and the MC is a newbie, so how would he pull that off? But the MC is confident, he just asks to get face to face with Zhao, and he'll handle the rest. Sunjong, already suspicious, sizes up the MC's audacity and wonders if the guy is a total badass or just completely nuts. The MC holds his gaze without blinking, with that look that screams, trust in Papa, success is coming. Then the old man caves and says the meeting is easy, but right then, the real big boss lady walks into the room. The girl, cold as ice and skipping the pleasantries, warns that if the plan fails, the MC is going to turn into sliced fish food. Looking all elegant, she turns and greets Sunjong as shopkeeper, with zero friendliness. The MC, who doesn't give a damn about the threat, thanks the shopkeeper in advance, showing nerves of steel. The boss lady sits down, analyzes the MC, and comments that he seems pretty confident, realizing he's not just all talk. Our badass guarantees his word, and the girl, already cracking a little smile, warns that the tower is going to want its cut of the profit. And then the MC drops the bomb. He gives up his 3/10 and splits everything 50-50 between Zhao and the tower. The boss lady, now puzzled, thinks it's weird he's walking away from the cash, and wants to know where the catch is. The MC then asks for the real prize, a spot in the spirit pool, which only happens once every 3 years. The revelation leaves both of them with their jaws on the floor, not understanding what this crazy guy is tripping on. The girl just stands there frozen, processing the unexpected request that glitched her system for a second. Out of nowhere, she bursts out laughing and mocks him, asking if the old man still dreams of being immortal at his age. The MC stays quiet in his lane, listening to the laughter echo in the awkward vibe of the room. The latter slowly dies down and turns into an awkward smile, with the girl amusing herself at the badass's expense. But the MC, already determined, lays it out that he's only after eternal life, even if he has to check out early in the process. The answer shuts down the boss lady's teasing and catches the old man by surprise. Beneath the veil, a smile is born, and the MC's determination ends up winning the girl over. And with that, she slams the gavel, agreeing to the deal and finally taking the MC seriously. The boss lady says she'll send the summons later, and the MC agrees that it's a done deal. Before bouncing, the MC leaves his address, house 7 in the 6th row, so there's no mistake with the delivery. Sunjong gets worried about the spot, but the boss lady guarantees the tower has the firepower to back up the fight. The girl crunches the numbers and sees that 5 years of profit pays for the spot with change to spare, zero risk. But then she drops a however and her face changes, remembering a sword detail in the plan. Sunjong, curious as a nosy neighbor, asks what the drama is. The boss lady, already kind of spooked, confesses that the MC's stare was creepy and left her on edge. Sunjong stays silent, thinking that the tough one in the story was supposed to be her. On the way back, the MC stops by the pharmacy to grab herbs to try cultivating on his own, since the pool only opens in 2 years. The badass stays locked up cultivating for days, until some shocking news arrives before Jiao's call. The gossip is heavy. Su Changju kicked the bucket, leaving nothing behind but a pile of ground meat. The body arrived looking like a mass of red meat that was still twitching. Totally bizarre. The folks from the realm were broke, so the MC dips into his own pocket to guarantee a dignified burial for the guy. The hare cries in the rain, and the MC just sighs at the harshness of life, not knowing the deceased very well. The badass reflects that the late guy was hardworking and had everything to succeed, even without being a genius. Even so, he couldn't tank the first phase of the cleansing and turned into a memory, proving that immortality is cruel. This whole drama makes the MC realize that he isn't some chosen one by the gods either. He cultivates for almost a month with no effect, while any average Joe would feel an improvement in half a month. But he sticks to the routine, and after another half a month, the tower folks show up at his door. Following the messenger, he arrives at a fancy courtyard and greets Butler Zhao with diplomacy. The old man asks straight up, saying he heard about the request for the spot and wants to know which big shot is backing the MC. The MC gives the business talk about profit, but the old man cuts him off, saying that finding treasure isn't like picking daisies. The geezer says that in over a dozen years on the island, the times they actually found treasure were rare, but the MC guarantees with absolute certainty that with him in command, every trip comes back with profit in the bag. The old man's eye glows red, activating lie detector mode to test the BS. To his surprise, the alarm doesn't go off and he realizes the badass is dead serious. The MC, already wearing that little smirk, plays dumb and asks how Zhao knew it was the truth. The old man reveals he has OP eyes that saw a white light, proving the guy was 100% sincere. The MC connects the dots and asks if the geezer saw anything weird about him on registration day. The old man says he only saw cash and dirty hands of someone who wasn't a nobody, so he was polite just to farm some karma. Our badass asks if he noticed Sun Zhang's lie, and the old man says that with an immortal master in the area, it doesn't matter. He adds that bringing in refugees is the big boss's order, so he wasn't going to cause trouble for Sun Zhang for no reason. The MC focuses and asks if, now that he's proved the truth, he can have the spot in the fleet. The old man explains that since the MC is a rookie with no contacts, handing over the fleet like that is going to cause a massive uproar. So he proposes a test. The MC goes on the next trip, and if he finds treasure, he takes command, no problem. The MC agrees on the spot, praising the geezer's anti-drama plan. The boss lady, peeking from the corner, is shocked by how easily the MC bent Jiao to his will. Sun Zhang confirms the success, and the girl starts to think the MC really is legit. The two stand there gossiping, dying of curiosity about our badass's secret power. The boss lady orders the deed to a courtyard on East Street to be delivered, an upgrade to his living situation. Sun Zhang glitches out and lets out a huh, not understanding the decision at all. The old man panics, saying they spent a fortune on that place just to hand it to a rookie on a silver platter. But the boss lady orders him to obey, saying that if he succeeds, the courtyard will be peanuts to buy his friendship. The MC accepts the deed and, since he's no dummy, moves into the mansion that same day. He politely dismisses the maids and settles down, but some unexpected drama postpones the trip. Out of nowhere, a gnarly storm swallows the island and everyone goes into total panic mode. The badass is at home, but the wind is so strong it almost blows the chopsticks right out of his hand. Curious, he runs outside and sees the gale taking everything in its path. He looks up at the sky and sees a blue energy barrier forming to protect the island. The giant dome closes and holds back the storm by brute force, showing that the immortal master doesn't play around. A voice announces that protection has been activated and tells everyone to get inside, no panic. Relieved, the crowd kneels, thanking the immortal master for his mercy. The MC stays on the porch just watching, unimpressed by the people's devotion. He analyzes the runes on the barrier and notices the sound of the rain has been totally blocked out. Fists clenched, he reflects on the power of the immortals keeping the peace inside while chaos reigns outside. Suddenly, the MC's eyes go wide, seeing something way more sinister going down in the sky. A colossal purple bolt comes down looking like the end of the world. Serious stuff. The impact throws the MC to the ground, spitting up juice, and he realizes it's heavenly thunder hitting the barrier. Battered, he looks up terrified, afraid more of that heavy artillery is coming. And it does, with a rain of purple lightning pounding the barrier without pity or mercy. The island becomes the target of a divine bombardment, a real war in the skies. The badass, screwed on the floor, thinks he's gonna be unalived right there, in such a dumb way. But the formation holds the line and the shockwaves decrease, even though danger keeps lurking. The storm took about 2 or 3 days to give it a rest, with the sky completely overcast the whole time. The MC heard that 15 years ago there was a worse one, which almost finished off the island and reduced the territory to a third. The island took a dozen years to recover, and the MC realizes the power of the heavens is terrifying. A few days later, everyone received spiritual talismans to inspect the barrier from home. The immortal master explains that the formation has 367,800 connection points to check. Then we see Zhao holding the talisman and doing his part in the technical maintenance. Even the boss lady is on it, pausing everything on the island to focus on the barrier's security. The immortal master was coordinating everything, but he had to head out to get more spirit stones after the storm. The process was technical. The talisman flashed 360 times in a cycle, and if it didn't show a red light, it was all good. The MC is blown away by the complexity of the formation, hard to even imagine building something like that. 5 days later, the result is green and life on the island goes back to normal with the master's return. In the following months, refugees arrived from destroyed islands that didn't have an immortal master to save their skins, and the badass kept cultivating, improving his physical age and stamina a bit, but no miracles. Another month passes and the notice comes from Zhao that the storm is gone and the fleet is going to set sail. 3 days later, at the pier, the MC finds the giant Kanjuan ship that Zhao pointed out. Nearby, sailors complain that the fleet with the lowest profit is going to lose its sailing license. They explain that the destroyed Coral Island is to blame, and now Lily has to cover the neighbors' losses. The crew is totally freaking out over the new responsibility. One guy says it's temporary, but the vibe of desperation is heavy in the air. Suddenly, a buff old dude shows up chewing them out, calling the guys cowards and telling them to look at the bright side of the situation. The brute, known as Zhang Habo, reveals the reward. First place gets their profit cut bumped from 30 to 50%, which makes everyone's eyes sparkle. But one of the sailors immediately rains on the boss's parade, telling Habo to quit dreaming because the team barely hits the minimum quota. Another clown, all hyped up, spits out the brain-dead idea of becoming pirates, thinking a life of crime would be a total thrill. Habo, grinning like someone in the know, tells the gang to chill and announces they've got an ace up their sleeve on board. Then the brute puts his hand on our MC's shoulder and guarantees the main guy is gonna fill everyone's pockets. The MC is just like, wait, me. The crew looks at our MC with major side eye, mocking him for being so pale and clean like he's never seen salt water. Habo, already ticked off, snaps at them, screaming they're blind for not recognizing a talent invited by Zhao himself. That's when the mutiny starts, a sailor rebel saying Habo has been captain for almost 10 years, and Lu San says he's gonna put a stop to this circus. One of the jokers, with that sneaky little smirk, is already plotting something nasty in the shadows. The tension heats up, and a rebel proposes tossing the MC overboard to become fish food as soon as they set sail. Habo tries to maintain order, reminding them the ship belongs to Zhao, and they're just employees selling their lives for some change. He explains that if the big boss butler Zhao wants to shake up the team, the only smart move is to obey whoever has sense. The MC, already smirking, realizes instantly that this is all just a cheap trick to test him. So the main guy plays along and asks if they think Butler Zhao is blind, guaranteeing he won't disappoint on the treasure hunt. The speech leaves the crew scratching their heads, remembering that Zhou's eye for good people almost never fails. Habo, already fed up with the stalling, is visibly irritated with his patience running out. The brute points a finger in the MC's face, screaming he doesn't buy this treasure-finding act and accuses the guy of using connections. After spitting fire, he turns his back and orders the ship to set sail once and for all to see what the MC is made of. The Kanjuan ship leaves the port powered by spell formations using spirit stones as fuel. But the sea is massive and the storm messed everything up, so finding a shoal now is like looking for a needle in a haystack. More than half a month passes, and the fishing is a bust, leaving the crew down in the dumps and Habo a nervous wreck. The old dude is worried because the deadline is 1 month and, with this pitiful haul, the risk of punishment is huge. Then the MC finally steps out of the cabin and Habo, all sarcastic, goes, "Well, look at that, finally decided to come out of your cave." The mockery continues, and the old dude says if he hadn't fetched food, he'd swear the guy had kicked the bucket inside that room. But our main guy ignores him, asks for a small boat, and drops the magic line, "I saw a treasure." The whole crew screams in shock, and Habo stands frozen in the middle of the deck at the revelation. The old dude, eyes wide, stammers asking if the guy isn't pulling his leg. Our main guy, now serious, orders the boat prepped and says he saw jewels shining at the bottom of the sea. With a focused look, he puts the pressure on, warning that the opportunity could vanish at any moment. That kicks Habo into action mode, and he screams desperately to get the boat ready fast. Once in the dinghy, the MC orders no one to follow, leaving the gang totally confused. With a bored look, the MC says the crew is too loud and messes with his concentration. The crew stands at the railing looking dumbfounded, not knowing whether to be mad or believe the rookie. A sailor theorizes he ran away, but Habo calls the guy an idiot, reminding him the crazy dude has no food out in the middle of nowhere. 2 hours later, a red signal cuts through the sky, and Habo yells to take the ship over there. The MC, all chill in the small boat, points at the water, letting them know the treasure is right there. The captain, hair flowing in the wind, orders the gang to jump in the water and cast the nets to haul on the loot. And what a loot, my friends! They hoist up a mountain of chests stuffed with gold and shiny jewels. Habo, flabbergasted by the wealth, counts a total of 16 chests, a fortune he's never seen before. A sailor, getting emotional, shouts that Mr. Lee wasn't full of crap and just lined everyone's pockets. The old dude, still in shock, whispers that the story was true and can't believe his eyes. He reflects that the MC is extraordinary, just like Butler Zhao, and realizes the old man didn't miss with this choice. Then the guilt hits, and Habo curses himself for thinking the main guy wanted to steal his puny fleet. With a face full of remorse, he runs across the ship, ready to beg forgiveness for his stupidity. As soon as the MC arrives, Habo bows to apologize, but the main guy just gives him a pat on the back and goes to take a nap. With the cash secured, the Kanjuan ship hightails it back to Lily Island to chill on dry land. Habo, already expecting drama, sends Lu San on the down low to call Butler Zhao to check the inventory. The old dude puffs out his chest saying the haul is going to be the biggest, and he doesn't trust outsiders to count the money. When they dock, the crew blocks the inspection officers. The suit-wearing guy gets pissed asking what kind of circus this is. The little inspector, with a venomous smile, says the ship returned empty and Habo's career is toast. Habo goes blind with rage, but the MC, totally chill, holds the brute back and says it's not worth it. Our MC watches and realizes Habo has value, but is held back by his past and lack of vision. Then, as if summoned, Butler Zhao shows up with his entourage to check out the show. When the 16 chests are unloaded, the port goes into an uproar and the gossip about the treasure spreads fast. Some guy rushes breathlessly into the heavenly treasure tower screaming for the boss, scaring the veiled girl. The guy, barely able to breathe, talks about the more than 10 chests and the Kanjuan ship. The woman, already bored, says 10 chests is no big deal and they'll have to sell to her anyway. But then it clicks and her eyes go wide, asking if it's the ship where that guy Li Fan is embarked. The messenger confirms excitedly, saying the MC's skill is just as broken as the big boss's. The woman wastes no time, she orders dinner prepared, the tower cleaned, and the deed transferred to the MC's name. Alone, she wonders if the MC has the legendary treasure spiritual channeling physique. This ability is like a rarity radar that lets you sense any valuable treasure nearby. And the plot twist is that the big boss, her older sister named Yin Yuding, also has this constitution. It was with this god-tier ability that her sister built the treasure tower empire from scratch. The MC ponders that the Chamber of Commerce's growth can't be a coincidence and figures out there's another user of this power. Back at the mansion, old man Zhao lays it on thick, saying the MC is off the charts for bringing in 16 top-tier chests. Our main guy agrees humbly, but keeps it real, saying it's going to be tough to score a jackpot like that again. The butler says that's obvious, but guarantees that with the profit, they can already set up an exclusive fleet for the kid. Then the old dude cuts the small talk and mentions he heard the MC is grinding for a spot in the purifying spiritual pool. The MC gets philosophical, saying treasure turns to dust, so the only thing that matters is seeking immortality and the Tao. The old man is impressed and admits he feels inferior, because that hunger for the Tao is rare. Zhao opens up, saying he saved an immortal master 10 years ago, but he was already too old to cultivate. He vents that the regret hits hard and that focused people like the MC are a minority on the island. The old dude explains you can't get the spot directly, since it depends on materials announced by the immortal master. He details that every family rushes to gather the items, and the spot goes to whoever stacks up the most contribution points. But he reassures the MC, pointing to the treasure tower, saying nobody beats them at gathering materials. Right then, the MC's mind wanders to that mysterious girl who summoned him. And sure enough, leaving the mansion, a guy named Sun Jung lets him know the boss wants a quick word. The MC accepts immediately, just refuses the deed they try to push on him, and follows the man inside. Arriving there, he sees the all-powerful boss lady in a gold dress on the balcony. The woman takes off her veil with a little smirk and introduces herself as Yin Yuzhen, the big boss around there. Our MC, straight to the point, just shoots back a Li fan without standing on ceremony. Yuzhen teases him, and he replies straight up that, being immortal, he doesn't have much to say. But she steps closer with a know-it-all look, and puts the secret of the treasure physique on the table. The MC turns his face away and plays dumb, asking what that is because he knows nothing. The girl corners him, wanting to know how he found the treasure. And he answers it was just a feeling. Yuzhen gets annoyed, unable to believe he has the nerve to deny the power with a straight face. Seeing he wasn't gonna spill the beans, she throws in the towel and decides to explain the OP physique. The MC suddenly gets interested and fires off questions about her sister, wanting to know where she was 20 years ago. The girl is so shocked she drops a classic, asks if the MC is their long-lost father. Our main guy denies it instantly, saying he doesn't look like them and was just curious. Yuzhen agrees it's normal to be curious about people of the same species. Then she says they came from Yellen Island and their parents got wiped out in a disaster, leaving the two of them alone. She remembers life was tough, and they had to beg without knowing where their next meal was coming from. But one fine day, her older sister started finding valuable stuff out of nowhere. With that ability, her sister became a beast and founded the Heavenly Treasure Tower all by herself. She ends by confessing she hasn't seen her sister for years, and the MC wants to know where the woman went. Yuzhen explains that 3 years ago, an immortal master saw her sister's talent and took her away. She says that in the very beginning, her sister even sent people with letters to let her know she was alive and safe. Or at least a smoke signal. The MC, already figuring things out, asks the obvious question, did the master take her away to cultivate and seek immortality? But the story isn't that simple. The girl, already all tense, reveals the secret. In the letters, her sister used a code only the two of them understood to warn her that her situation was extremely dangerous. That's when the MC realizes immediately that the whole mess was caused by her special physique. That kind of rare power only attracts jealousy and trouble. She explains that her sister's power only works for mortal treasures, which in the eyes of an immortal master, are nothing but a pile of junk. But other masters had already noticed her ability and never cared, so she doesn't understand why that last one insisted so much on taking her. Even with her sister in danger, Yuzhen stands firm. She says the foundation her sis left behind can't be destroyed in her hands. The problem is, without her sister's power, the tower's business went south, and she even took a huge loss by appraising some fake items. To top off the disaster, the tower's veterans turned their coats. They're plotting to kick her to the curb and carve up the company's assets. Luckily, those backstabbers are still afraid of the immortal master, which is why she bailed from Yellen Island with the excuse of expanding and came to hide here. The plan was to lay low for a few years and accumulate power, but she didn't count on finding another guy with the same rare power right here on Liuli Island. The girl throws the bait shamelessly, saying that if she has his help, she'll definitely be able to regain control of the treasure tower. But our tough guy doesn't care about inheritance drama. He kills her vibe instantly, warning her that he has no interest in business and his only wish is immortal cultivation. Then he calls in the debt. He reminds the lady that she promised to help him get a spot in the spirit pool if he secured the fleet, and asks if she's gonna chicken out. With a cheeky grin, she guarantees the tower keeps its promises, but then she drops that however. that sends shivers down anyone's spine. The MC, already smelling something fishy, stares at the girl, wanting to know straight up what catch she's hiding. She then keeps it real. She says that even if he gets into the pool, expelling the miasma isn't easy, and almost half of those who enter every year fail miserably. The girl keeps the pressure on, reminding him that Gramps here isn't a spring chicken anymore. She warns this is a one-time chance, and if he fails, he can kiss his dream of cultivating goodbye forever. The MC doesn't even blink and says 50% chance is already enough, but he realizes by her tone that there's more to this story. Already victorious, she confirms his suspicion with an exactly, making it clear she saved the best for last. Then comes the ace up her sleeve. She reveals that her sister's last letter came with a miraculous elixir, a pill that insanely boosts the success rate of the cleansing. The MC, suspicious, asks the obvious with such an overpowered item in hand, why on earth didn't she take the pill herself all this time? She explains, filled with determination, that not everyone is a cultivation junkie like him. Her only wish is to run the business and protect her sister's legacy. Our guy nods, understanding her side, and agrees that, at the end of the day, to each their own ambitions in life. Yuzin, grinning from ear to ear, thinks she's hooked the fish and asks if this means Uncle finally agrees to the partnership. But the MC isn't that easy. He says he's going home to think about it and will give an answer in 3 days, leaving the girl hanging in total anxiety. As he walks away, she stands there hoping, praying with all her heart that she didn't bet wrong this time. After investigating and confirming the pill story was legit, they closed the deal. The MC would help find treasures, and she would hand over the elixir. To show she wasn't bluffing, she even offered the deed to a tower for him. Since they already had a deal, the MC didn't stand on ceremony and accepted the gift. During the 1 year he lived there, the man didn't play around. He completed 3 official trips, brought back chests that shocked the island, and secured the fleet spot. The result was insane. In 1 year, the tower earned the equivalent of 5, and the MC became a legend, earning everyone's respect and fear. But the MC didn't drop his cultivation either. He grinded on a technique with a weird name whenever he had time, until the system dropped a bombshell warning that loading had sped up. To give you an idea, before, the thing took 20 years to reach 100%, but now, in 1 year of training, the progress bar already jumped to 15%. Our guy starts putting the pieces together and realizes the only different thing was training that incantation. The conclusion is that cultivating this stuff is turbocharging his system. And the system is living proof of that. Not just the progress, but his physical and mental age took a huge leap, making the MC strong at abnormal speed. Time flies, and with only 1 year left until the pool opens, Yuzin shows up all happy, letting him know the Immortal Master's material list is finally out. At the meeting, the girl mentions most items are chill, except for something called Starry Sea Quicksand that nobody knows. The MC suggests the Manhwa Chamber of Commerce. The other old guy predicts a rip-off, saying those folks are greedy, but the MC is laser-focused and warns that, no matter the price, he's getting that sand. And the trip isn't short. The map shows this chamber is on a continent thousands of miles away, but the word on the street is that they're protected by an immortal master. Yuzin already has a plan. She says they have a year, but a traveling merchant from the chamber will be passing nearby in 3 months, and she can hit him up. But the MC, always one step ahead, cuts the optimism and warns that they can't put all their eggs in the Manhwa chamber basket. He then drops Plan B: search among the island's refugees and keep an eye on the other factions, because they're definitely hunting for the item too. And the gossip spread like wildfire. With the list public, the whole island now knows the fat cats are after this so-called Starry Sea Quicksand. Then one day, the kid Xiao Heng pops up out of the blue at the MC's tower, and our guy politely wants to know what's good. The youngster goes straight to the point, says he heard Brother Li is also on the hunt for the Starry Sea Quicksand. The MC confirms it straight up, explaining the pool is his only chance, and throws bait to see if the kid has any hot intel. Xiao Heng cracks a huge smile and drops the bomb. He says the Immortal Master promised to take anyone who gathered supplies, and guess what? The sand was on the list. The MC gets suspicious, thinking the story is weird and wondering, wait, why don't I remember this part of the deal? The kid explains the commoners list was edited, the secret tasks were divided among the nobles, and his mansion got the mission to scavenge for that specific sand. Our guy doesn't mess around. He stares at the kid and tells him to keep it real, extending his hand and asking him to spit out the conditions. The boy then vents. He reminds the MC that he did him a solid by burying Chanju, and says life in the island's slums is too hard for him. The MC, understanding, says he gets it and reinforces his determination. If the kid gives him a clue, he can ask for whatever he wants, and the MC will move mountains to make it happen. With the promise in hand, Xiao Heng gets all happy and thanks his big brother in advance for the help. Then comes the big reveal. The kid says the item isn't rare, it just has a fancy name. The so-called quicksand is actually meteorite iron that fell from the sky. The MC finally understands the trick and asks if any meteorite iron works, or if there's a special requirement for the thing. The kid confirms right away that yes, brother. There are several requirements for this stuff to work. He details the specs. The iron has to look good and weigh at least 50 jin per piece. The MC stands there committing everything to memory. After the lecture, the MC says he got the message and asks little brother what he wants in exchange for this info that's worth its weight in gold. The boy is pretty humble. He just wants a decent courtyard to live in, a chill job, and some servants to help take care of the house. The MC laughs, finding it funny. Is that all the prince's son asks for? He says the kid could ask for more since he is Cloud in the tower. But Xiaoheng knows his limits. He says he knows the struggle, and that getting rich out of nowhere would only bring envy and misery to his life. The MC doesn't push it, and the kid says goodbye. On his way out, the tough guy asks if he has any plans to cultivate, seeing as he suffered so much to get there. The boy denies it with a smile, says he has zero interest, and that incantation book the MC reads is boring as hell. After saying goodbye, the MC goes to tell Yuzin the news. She's suspicious, but he replies that the boy seems sincere, although they need to verify. The MC reminds her that the Manhwa merchant is coming. When the guy shows up, they can corner him to confirm the story and save some cash. But either way, they need to start buying meteorite iron on the down low. The MC warns that few people know now, but the gossip will spread soon. Our guy then cooks up a strategy, mix the iron with other items in the purchase to fool the curious folks and leak fake news to confuse the competition. Yuzin's jaw drops, saying uncle isn't simple. She didn't expect him to have a foolproof strategy for everything. With her eyes shining with curiosity, she can't help herself and asks what the heck uncle did for a living before showing up here. The MC, with the ultimate poker face, gives the vaguest answer in the universe, saying he just taught people how to read. The girl pouts like she didn't believe a single word and grumbles that she doubts that story very much. He dumps the responsibility on her, saying he's leaving matters in her hands to cultivate, asks not to be disturbed, and tells her to handle the Xiaoheng situation. Alone, Yuzin is puzzled, wondering how a small thing like helping Xiaoheng could be a great luck event. She reflects on her ability. Unlike her sister, she foresees luck, and ever since she met the MC, all his tasks have resulted in great luck. It clicks and she realizes she's never encountered this much luck before. Trusting her intuition, she decides she'll help the MC with everything she can. And so, the treasure tower started operating at full steam, spreading fake news about the sand, and the other factions smelled a trap and waited. But the strategy worked. One faction decided to buy to resell, the others followed, and the joker who arrived late got nothing. The guy gets pissed asking about other treasures, but the seller says everything is gone for good, prices exploded, and chaos broke loose on the island. And while the place was turning into a circus, our MC, the architect of the mess, was chilling in his tower, cultivating quietly and laughing at everyone else's misery. The dust only settled 3 months later, when Yuzin finally managed to contact the traveling merchant from the Manhwa chamber. One fine day, the MC and Yuzin took a small boat and slipped away, traveling dozens of leagues north to the meeting point. Out of nowhere, they get a fright. A gigantic flying ark pops up in the sky and a voice shouts down, "Greeting Chief Yin." The flying ark arrives above them and lands gently on the water, looking like a paper boat despite its colossal size. Yuzin, all proud, nudges the MC and asks, full of sass, if seeing a ship like that isn't a huge shock. But our MC doesn't even twitch a muscle, keeping his poker face. And the girl gets all annoyed that he didn't react to her teasing. On the gangplank, a dude with cat ears appears to welcome them. Yuzin greets Merchant Wu, mentioning it's been 3 years since they've seen each other. Wu agrees and points to our guy, wanting to know who he is. The girl, like a pro, introduces him as an elder hired by the tower. The merchant greets the MC and cuts the chit-chat, saying they need to see the merchandise right away, because they might not meet again anytime soon. Yuzin gets defensive, and Wu explains he received an order from headquarters for everyone to return to base ASAP. He continues, saying if it weren't for the scheduled deal with her, he would have bounced already, so they need to close the transaction like yesterday. The girl panics. The tower depends on the chamber, and she doesn't understand why her power to foresee the future failed this time. Merchant Wu, seeing the woman zoned out, calls her out, asking what planet she's on. She apologizes for spacing out, switches back to business mode, and invites him to see the goods they brought. Inside the cabin, the MC takes on the role of salesman and starts listing the inventory, showing the corals, jade discs, and pearls. Then he points to the jackpot, 3 gigantic rocks of starry sea quicksand. The merchant is shocked and asks to see them. The guy lifts one of the 50 gin rocks as if it were styrofoam, and the MC realizes immediately that the dude is way stronger than he looks. Wu analyzes the rocks with a huge grin, totally satisfied with the quality, repeating good, good, like a kid with candy. He turns to Yuzin, super happy, and says she was damn lucky to have managed to collect items as good as that sand. The MC and Yuzin exchange a knowing look. Now they are 100% sure the kid Xiaoheng wasn't lying. With the deal sealed, Wu makes a special invite. Since they won't see each other for a while, he invites the two to be guests on the flying ark. After chowing down, the merchant takes them to the warehouse and shows off some junk he bought, saying he doesn't even know what it's for. Yuzin's eyes are already sparkling, thinking she hit the jackpot, but the MC thinks it's all just mortal trash, and only nods along to make her happy. Then Wu lays down the law. They only have the time it takes for an incense stick to burn to pick whatever they want to take. So Yuzin, all giddy, praises a jade bracelet, but the MC, already bored out of his mind, just says the material is not bad. He picks up a blue sphere and thinks that after 300 years of cycles, if it's not for cultivation, he couldn't care less. But then, out of nowhere, the main guy's eyes almost pop out of his head, sensing a different kind of energy. The system goes off instantly, detecting the nascent Kanghai pearl, and the MC accepts the loot without even blinking. Totally shocked, he realizes it's a heaven and earth wonder, still in its incubation phase. So he controls himself to not give the game away, puts the pearl back in the box, and tries to play it cool. The MC, acting totally unbothered, goes to look at other stuff, leaving Yuzin confused and asking why he isn't picking anything. Then Wu gives him a big slap on the back, telling him to quit being picky, saying that leaving empty-handed would be bad manners. At that, the MC grabs a green jade statue in the small box with the pearl, and Wu explains that the statue calms the mind. When they point to the box, Wu, not caring at all, says he just bought it from a fisherman on Luyan Island. That name gets stuck in the MC's head, and he holds the gifts, already cooking up a scheme. With the deal sealed, the chamber takes the treasures, and Yuzin walks out with a fat stack of cash and the extras. On the way back, Yuzin can't hide her worry anymore, and the MC picks up on the bad vibes, asking if it's about business. She confirms, looking pretty bummed out, that without the chamber they lost a vital channel, and she doesn't get their sudden exit. The MC, totally zen, tells her to chill out, saying there's always a path when you reach the mountain. Arriving at the island, he goes to the tower, thinking he was just going to confirm a story, but ended up finding some insane treasure. Alone, he analyzes the pearl, not getting how a little marble can be named Kanghai and wondering if there's an ocean inside. But in the middle of the night, while he's mesmerized by the item, he hears a weird noise outside. The MC, already ticked off, wonders who the brave soul is that dares to disturb his sleep before the sun comes up. Standing up and armed, he goes on high alert and shouts, asking who the clown is, ready to send the visitor straight to the afterlife. But to see this mess actually go down, you guys are gonna have to comment a lot.